The anime begins with a battle being held against the vampires, but the vampires seem to have the upper hand. One of them reports to their commander about finishing off almost all of the enemy army, shows that the victory of the Komari unit is clear as day. Some other members also brag about their great victory until they are told that it is too early to celebrate. Their senior, Coastal, gives them an earful to not boast about it until they win, since the enemy can have an ace up their sleeve anytime. He tells them this is their first battle as Mole Knight Empire, so they should believe in themselves to not be beaten but not call it a victory yet. He turns towards the girl, Terakomari, sitting on a throne, questioning if he was right. The next moment, this young girl is found sleeping in her bed. Terakomari Gandisblood has been living as a shut-in for 3 years, and her hobby is to think frequently that the world is irrational. She was born in the Gandisblood, which is one of the most noble families in the Mole Knight Empire. Her family has had a history of being generals and imperials, but even after hard efforts to meet those expectations, she failed. Komari is a vampire who lacks every aptitude. She has no physical strength, no magic, and she cannot stand the sight and smell of blood, which is her basic nutrition source. She is also short, if that counts as a misfortune. She decided to shut herself in away from the race to power among the vampires. So basically she's like you but actually has a purpose in life. Komari wakes up from her peaceful slumber when the Mole Knight Empire emblem appears on her tummy, making it itchy for her. Her confusion turns into panic when a stranger maid is standing right beside her bed, wishing her a good morning. The maid introduces herself as Vilhes, a junior lieutenant from the Imperial Army. She got the job to serve Komari personally from now on. Komari gets up to pee, but Vilhes seems to think it is not an emergency enough and they should be heading straight to the Imperial Court where Komari is needed currently. She tries to free herself, but Vil calmly holds her wrist unbothered by her efforts. She leaves her wrist when Komari's father enters the room and says so. Komari falls face first on the floor by that stunt. Her father tells her Vil will be her maid from now on by the orders of the Empress. Vil steps up to clear the confusion and announces Komari as one of the 7 Crimson Lords now. The Lords are the strong vampires that lead the Mole Knight army. Why? Well, because the other day her father asked her to start working and she boringly threw a remark to not mind working if she gets the throne. Thus, her father ran his connections and decided to reach out to the Empress about that. She was convinced after a while and formed a contract with Komari. The scenario gets even more interesting since the Empress snuck in when Komari was asleep and kissed her to seal the contract, hence why she has no recollection of it. The Empress seems to be an even bigger drama than Komari. She decides to show her the Crimson Lord path via chibi pictures of her. As a Crimson Lord, Komari needs to go to war with a nation and win every 3 months. She can stand to be the next Empress after winning the 100th war. However, if she continues to lose, she will explode. She gets to be the leader of 500 men, but those 500 are very much capable of attacking her if they realize she is weaker than them. The Empress is well aware of Komari being weak and suggests they all keep up the act of showing her as strong. Vil expresses her favor in confessing loving Komari the most in the whole universe. Komari thinks it's a bluff, but Vil seems to be deeply infatuated with her. When reaches to address her army, Komari has a hard time pushing the huge door open, showing how weak she is. When the door is slightly ajar, a soldier appears abruptly trying to attack her, making Komari jolt and back away. The door closes right on the soldier's neck, killing him there and then. This accidentally sets up an example for others to not mess around with Komari or doubt her strengths. In her address, after messing it up first, she manages to create an intimidating impression that everyone will be heavily granted for following her in a life that is now war every day for them. Their first opponent is the monkeys, so they can make quite a solid impression by winning that. The war is easily won, and Komari also keeps up her boasting to make her strength believable and makes excuses for not participating personally. She even manages to spew out big words to have her army go crazy in her support. A reporter appears there wanting answers to a lot of questions about Komari becoming a Crimson Lord. She pushes the reporter away from being too close and announces that she is only there to dominate and will annihilate the 5 other commanders to have the Mole Knight Empire rule over the entire world pretty soon. Everyone is enchanted by her words. The reason why Komari thinks of her world as being irrational is that the concept of death in war doesn't exist there. Each of the 6 nations possesses a dark core that uses magic to fade away the deepest of wounds or tragic deaths into nothing with time. Vil is right in her mention of this being an entertainment war. The next day, Vil shows Komari the news article about her, and the reporter so casually mixed her one line about liking omelette rice with her intimidating speech. Vil also tells her about the death threats from the martyrs of the previous day. Vil tells her she will protect her even though her inappropriate nature seems to be more of a danger to Komari at the moment. Upon her refusal to go to work, Vil takes out some papers and starts reading a cringe poem on wanting a love like strawberry milk, written by none other than the small Crimson Lord in her blanket burrito. Vil threatens to distribute this in the imperial court if Komari runs from her duties. Komari surrenders and agrees to follow Vil. Her cute vulnerable expressions once again bring the creep out of Vil. Komari prepares for a meeting with the 3 lead officers of her army. She asks what the next stance should be. The first one is the wolf, Belius, who tells them they should go to perpetual war. He was demoted for murder charges formerly. The next is none other than the fan of Might Komari, Coastal, who wants to see what Komari decides. He is the lieutenant demoted on suspicion of kidnapping a young girl. The third is Mr. Rapper, Melanchonsi, who simply wants to have a rap battle with Komari. He was demoted on a failed attempt to blow up a palace. Even though the demands are absurd, Vil tells them Komari will grant them provided their efforts in the former war. Coastal captures a bunch of pictures of Komari and tries to get her into dresses that highly link to the accusation against him. Belius holds out on his request while Melanchonsi and Komari end up having a rap battle against each other. While walking down the corridor, Coastal calls Komari a mystery, making Belius question why he says so. He tells her that the riot in the Empire from 3 years ago reported about 100 total deaths, and they were all killed by one pinky finger. The suspicion goes to Komari, provided the statement Vil passed about Komari doing so in her childhood when they first met her. The two are highly unaware of how empty that claim was. Even though the stats and culprits are a mystery, it feels that the massacre was somehow linked to Komari. As the two get out of the palace doors, a blue-haired girl with a mask stands there. They tell her the palace is off limits, but she avoids their statement, showing her surprise at how the defenses of the palace are better than she expected, or else she would have now been on her way after killing the Empress. She tells them she will kill her soon, but now is not the time and she was just here to calculate the things on bait. She then mentions Komari becoming the Crimson Lord. The two attack her for obvious reasons but are too slow for her. She mockingly tells them to give her best wishes to Komari and leaves. Belius is concerned while Coastal simply tells him they cannot do anything. This messed up guy, however, is willing to go out of his way and catch her if only he gets a foot-licking coupon from Terakomari. Terakomari wakes up tired the next day and does not want to get out of bed until Vil mentions it is the day Komari gets to choose her beast. She excitedly gets to the stable where all the beasts are kept. She looks around fascinated until her sight stops at a graceful dragon. The person tries to stop her from choosing that one, but the beast and the girl are already bonding well. Upon Vil's question, the man tells her it is a native dragon that is one of the highest classes and only has an infatuation with young girls, which is quite visible in the sight in front of them. She names him Bucephalus and starts her first ride, not at all expecting it to be fast and rough for her, and she does not manage to control the direction. In the training grounds, everyone is working hard while Helders is munching on his chicken, still frustrated about being killed by Komari in the door chaos. He is hell-bent on getting his revenge, only to get his head smashed once again by the wild beast of his new enemy, Ms. Komari. As the beast lands on the ground, Komari is sent flying by the impact. She is lucky to have a capable maid at her rescue who reaches there to catch her. A tongue-tied and nauseated Komari tries to stabilize herself while the knights gush about the guts of their leader to handle such a strong and fast beast. Coastal steps forward to report about them all working hard simultaneously, inviting her to participate in her exercises, but she declines to do so. The other knights then talk about Komari killing their arrogant mate before he could challenge her again, shocking Komari, who did not even realize what she had done. Vil also pitches in that the guy deserved it for trying to call himself better than her. The guy becomes alive again and tries to attack Komari one more time. Komari stands there too stunned to even try and dodge, but thanks to the on-spot thinking of Vil, things don't get out of hand. Vil pushes Komari in a spinning manner right before he can touch her. The spin looks like a graceful dodge, especially since her foot made Helders trip, and she then lost her balance, landing her fingers directly in his eyes. No one notices it all being pure coincidence, so she warns him not to mess with her if he wants to not have more damage inflicted upon him. accepting she got him good, he throws his glove on her face, making a red mark appear on her nose, and then officially challenges her to a duel. Komari, who cannot reject the challenge, just stands there too stunned and confused to react. In the battleground, everyone cheers for Komari while booing Helders, but Komari nervously shivers in the middle of the crowd. She has an earpiece while Vil communicates with her from afar, relieving her not to worry and just trust her guidance, and she will surely be victorious without death in this battle. As Helders comes out, he looks pale and blue and walks heavily towards Komari while holding his stomach. She worries about him and is shocked to hear Vil poisoned his food. Even with being poisoned, puking colorful stuff, and walking heavily, he is determined to burn Komari down to prove he is better than her. Komari fears how he is still approaching her since she has no skills to protect herself. Vil tells her to pretend to use magic and makes her snap her fingers on a cue. The moment she does so, the ground becomes a ditch beneath Helders, and he falls into it. Everyone is amazed by the magic and the fact that they don't feel her magical aura, which means she knows how to conceal it too. Well, it is pretty easy to conceal something that does not exist. But the army does not need to know that. Still alive, Helders comes out of the pit and drags himself toward Komari while attacking her with his magic. She manages to dodge, or he does not aim right. We can never know. It turns out, Vil dug 52 pits in the ground as a trap, so she tells Komari not to move around much. However, the little distance between Helders and Komari currently has no pit. It is a thing to worry about for Komari, but not for Vil. It is proved by Helders being blasted out by the 69 landmines planted in the field by the most loyal and devoted maid one can ever find. Helders tries to still attack but dies right before reaching her. Komari declares her victory and everyone cheers for her. She tells Vil she feels like she is deceiving everyone, but Vil corrects her that it is the truth and not a feeling. Talk about being curt. While relaxing in the hot tub, Komari thinks about thanking Vil, who appears there and tries to touch her inappropriately as usual. Komari notices her scary hands and is glad to have Vil work so hard for her, telling her not to feel ashamed of showing her the wounds she got while serving her.
小鞠様が私のことを大好きだということが分かりました。
Komari asks Vil why she always clings to her, making her confess that she committed a crime. Komari assumes it was doing something inappropriate, but Vil's smile hints otherwise. Helders drinks his annoyance away when the masked girl appears beside him, inviting him to work in alliance with her. She introduces herself as Millicent of the Sublime Inverse Moon. At a party, Komari comforts Belius to enjoy being invited to such parties since they signify his success in his duties. The Empress takes Komari and chats with her to tell her that her father's gamble worked out to make her a Crimson Lord to bring her out of her shut-in. She encourages Komari not to fall into the same despair as 3 years ago, since she now has people who love and care for her. Komari gets a flashback of the massacre from 3 years ago that includes a glimpse of Millicent, who ironically appears right there wanting to have a conversation with Komari. Unaware of the person behind the mask, Komari tries to act cheerful and talk casually, but seems like Millicent does not have the patience to pretend to be nice. She soon removes the mask, threatening her that she is back to avenge what happened 3 years ago. Komari is still confused even after seeing the face, until the girl introduces herself, giving Komari haunting flashbacks of her school life. Millicent then attacks Komari, but she is pushed away by Belius, who gets stabbed in her place. Chaos befalls the venue. People evacuate, leaving an injured Belius, unoffended yet amused Empress, a worried maid, and a traumatized Crimson Lord in front of this troublemaker. The other knights who try to intervene are killed. Millicent threatens to kill Komari, but only when she can truly kill her, as she is part of the Inverse Moon, a terrorist organization working to destroy the Dark Core so the dead can never become alive again. She then escapes through a portal. Coastal is offended by the intrusion and by Belius being killed, but Vil tells him not to act rashly, as Millicent carries a ritual article that won't allow dead ones to revive. She also points out there is a spy who opened transfer gates within the palace for Millicent, and makes an excuse for Komari that she is solely working on solving this issue. Komari lies in her room, remembering her traumatizing school life, where being a weak vampire made her a core target of Millicent's bullying. She took it all silently until Millicent reached for her pendant, which was a memento from her mother. That is when she snapped and tried to run away, but does not recall what happened when Millicent tried to kill her afterward. Coastal uses Komari's hair to track where she is since he wants to help her out. Komari decides to shut herself in again, but Vil visits her with her favorite rice omelet. She hands her a letter that shares why Vil is working for her, but before the conversation could progress further, she is stabbed by none other than Millicent. She wants to kill Komari, but more tragically, so she calls her to the Lanelliot City Castle ruins by midnight. She takes the injured Vil as a hostage with her. Komari sits in her room conflicted on whether to stay shut in forever or risk her life to save Vil. She gets flashbacks of Vil supporting her, but what pushes her is the letter that Vil wrote her. Komari and Vil met 3 years ago when Vil transferred to their school and was bullied by Millicent. Komari had stood up to stop Millicent from killing Vil, which resulted in Komari becoming the target of the bullying. Vil was weak and scared, so she silently observed it all happen and lived with the guilt of making Komari a shut-in vampire. This is why she decided to redeem her mistakes and crime when she got the chance to serve Komari. Even though Komari thinks she is weak, she is the strongest and kindest person for Vil, so it is no surprise that Komari now feels obliged to go save someone who cherishes her this much. Komari gets out of her residence only to meet Coastal, who summons Bellius and Melanchoncy to help Komari. Komari is delighted to see Bellius recover, and the three support her, but she wants to have this fight by herself and just wants encouragement from them to go ahead and win. Helders, who was the traitor, is annoyed to see Vil as a hostage and regrets working with a terrorist who is sadistically harming an already dead Vilhaze. Millicent stabs Helders for talking too much as if it is a normal thing to do and is delighted to see her enemy finally there to see her. Komari is simply focused on saving Vil, but Millicent intends to take her sweet time to narrate why she resents Komari so much. The same day 3 years ago, Komari became the strongest of all and made Millicent hate her even more than before. Millicent was the heir of a competitive family, and her father wanted her to compete in power with the Gandis blood family. He hired a teacher to use all brutal means to make her acquire Rikaku Liberation, a phenomenon where one can shatter the earth and move the stars with their unique magic. It is triggered by a certain state of mind, so her training mainly involved having inflicted wounds that don't heal with magic so she can acquire this ability. But even after a hell of training, she could not do so and was heartbroken for being called a disappointment by her father. When Millicent got to know of Vil's Rikaku Liberation predicted the future of the one who drinks her blood. Vil hesitantly tells Millicent she is a pitiful person, hence the bullying starts, and the rest of the events involve Komari standing up for Millicent. She did not bully Komari for doing so, but for being so confident and being a Gandis blood with Rikaku Liberation ability. Most of the bullying was targeted to have her spirit submit to Millicent, but when she tried snatching her pendant, she did not remember anything ahead because of her Rikaku Liberation. When she woke up, she got to know she had died because of Komari, and Komari's father deported her family on accusation of treason. The family had nowhere to go until they ended up getting involved in the terrorist organization of Inverse Moon. So, she envied Komari the whole while for living a luxurious life while she suffered with her family. With the flawed and pathetic reasoning of Millicent, Komari pities her for feeling underconfident and useless her whole life. Helders wakes up and asks Komari to run away as the wounds inflicted by Millicent are not healing with time. Even though aware of Helders being a traitor, she tells him she will save him. Millicent hurts Helders again, so Komari throws a magic stone to kill him, so he is not hurt by Millicent for a while. Millicent mocks Komari for using magic stones, but that doesn't move her motive of wanting to save Vil and defeat Millicent. Even with relying on magic stones, Komari manages to get a few shots and even have Millicent crushed beneath a large boulder, but thinking it was all over with that was a mistake. Komari tries to reach Vil but gets stabbed in the leg by Millicent. This gives the enemy the upper hand and Millicent keeps hurting Komari after that. Millicent is once again proved wrong to think Komari came here relying on her Rikaku Liberation, since Komari has no idea about that. She only came to save a friend even though she knew she was weak. Annoyed at that, Millicent decides to kill Vil, but Komari comes in between, once again becoming the target of Millicent's wrath. Millicent keeps hurting her until one final attack sends Komari flying and hitting Vil. As Komari lies there helpless, pitying herself for losing against Millicent and failing to save Vil, Vil weakly tells Komari to not look so sad. Ready to face whatever punishment her next move brings her, she pulls her hand out of the ties, making it bleed. She then drops the blood in Komari's mouth. This shows Vil that Komari will not lose, followed by Komari awakening her Rikaku liberation. The next moment, Komari's whole persona changes with an intense amount of magical power flowing out of her. Millicent still thinks she can defeat Komari and attacks her while Komari's army rushes to the door wanting to help her. They seem to be right on point, not so. They could warn Komari of the special grade annihilating flame attack by Millicent, but to witness how powerful their leader is. It takes one flick to divert the attack and Millicent is unable to attack further because Komari cuts her arms off using her magic. Ready to end the chaos, Komari then crushes Millicent's head. A little too late, but Millicent finally realizes that liberation is linked to honest feelings like deep and genuine care for the people who matter to oneself. She was weak because she was shallow and petty, not because of some dumb luck. The next morning, Komari wakes up in her bed with bandages on herself and a bandaged up Vil beside her. Komari is relieved that Vil is fine while Vil keeps it that they just won with the help of Komari. Her father had told Vil that Komari evoked her Rikaku liberation for the first time back when she was 3, and drank blood for the first time, so she was hypnotized to hate blood so she would not go out of control with her magic. This is why they decided to not tell her of her true skill so as to not burden her. Now the question remains on what Vil should do since she has redeemed herself and helped Komari. After a good amount of dramatics, Vil manipulates Komari into keeping her as her maid and then tries to further manipulate her by calling it a proposal by Komari for Vil to forever be with her. Vil once again gets an earful from her tiny boss. After Komari and Vil patched up from the Millicent mishap, Karen summoned Komari to her palace. Now, here's where things get interesting. Komari's completed a writing masterpiece that outshines even the greatness of Strawberry Milk. But hold on to your hats, because Vil, in her eager anticipation to impress her crush, decided to wait in the buff, aiming to warm Komari's heart with her unusual approach. Of course, Komari's reaction was nothing short of unexpected. In the midst of this, a cloaked blue-haired girl with red eyes makes a brief appearance, signaling the activation of her core implosion ability. As Vil and Komari make their way to meet Karen, they cross paths with the envy-inducing float Masquerale, the villainous Crimson Lord. Turns out, she's not thrilled about Komari's winning streak, thinking Komari is all show and no substance. Now, onto the hilariously awkward apology attempt. Vil offers blood buns and a t-shirt featuring a goofy face of Komari, a gem of a gift from one of her commanders. The comedic twists keep coming when Komari finally meets Karen, who playfully shoves a Mikan-flavored ice pop into Komari's mouth, claiming it as an indirect kiss. But, oh boy, the mood takes a sharp turn when Karen drops a bombshell. Komari's father met a tragic end at the hands of a terrorist the night before. In a strange blend of seriousness and silliness, Karen tasks Komari with hunting down the elusive terrorist who's been targeting high-level officials. Despite the weight of the situation, Komari, true to her quirky self, throws a temper tantrum, insisting on a break. Karen, being the negotiator she is, promises time off only if Komari successfully nabs the terrorist. And just to make sure Komari doesn't tackle this mission alone, Karen throws in some unexpected teamwork vibes. The stage is set for an adventure that promises both laughs and thrills in equal measure. The plot thickens as Karen, the orchestrator of this unfolding drama, summons another Crimson Lord to deal with the elusive terrorist, Sakuna Memoir. Shockingly, Sakuna turns out to be an adorable figure reminiscent of Vil, and it's no surprise that Vil, now a green-eyed monster, shows envy as Komari becomes smitten by Sakuna's pretty looks. Sakuna, despite her appealing exterior, perceives herself as weak and shy, a bookworm who accidentally landed the Crimson Lord role after unintentionally offing her predecessor with magic. Vil's jealousy intensifies as Komari seems drawn to Sakuna's charms. Unlike Vil, Sakuna is not as perverted, has a relatable demeanor, and Vil is quick to impose strict conditions on Komari's interactions with Sakuna, limiting meetings to serious matters only. The tension rises when Komari casually proposes a zoo date with her 500-man army if they manage to locate the terrorists. Vil, visibly upset, dark vibes emanating, is not thrilled with this development. But she's trapped in the job, driven by the fear of an explosive demise if she quits. The narrative takes a suspicious turn with the introduction of a priest, a figure tied to both Sakuna and a past murder. Sakuna's association with the priest, who runs an orphanage she hails from, raises red flags for Komari and Vil. Komari mentions the core implosion rumor, which Sukuna dismisses. However, Sukuna's casual claim that crushing an apple, let alone a watermelon, isn't challenging hints at hidden depths. Phil, still the pragmatic one, suggests patrolling the Mole Knight Palace during the night, leading to Komari's predictable temper tantrum over her working hours. However, before they can delve deeper into their plans, an explosion outside interrupts the proceedings.
Yeah! あいつが襲ってきたので。
普通に喋るのかよ。
Komari's forces are defeated by none other than Masquerade, who accuses Komari of terrorism, destruction of property, and attempted murder. Now, Masquerade aims to submit a vote of no confidence for Komari, putting her in a dire situation. Phil's ominous visions of Komari's explosive demise, linked to the blood buns she gave to Masquerade, make the stakes even higher, as Komari faces the challenge of clearing her name and catching the real terrorist. Vil, despite her dislike for the flirting between Komari and Sukuna, gears up to take matters into her own hands. The plot thickens, promising a mix of suspense, humor, and unexpected twists as the characters navigate this complex web of intrigue and danger. In a surprising turn of events, Masquerade attempts to gather all the Crimson Lords for a meeting, armed with the belief that Komari exaggerated her strengths, citing Komari's report card. Masquerade, driven by a desire to eliminate Komari, questions her qualifications and implies that her position is a result of connections, particularly Karen's influence. Despite Karen's attempts to defend Komari, she lacks the authority over Crimson Lord affairs, highlighting Masquerade's ruthless demeanor reminiscent of the bullying tactics employed by Millicent. Meanwhile, Sukuna uncovers the shocking news of a deceased Crimson Lord, only to discover that Vil is the culprit.
本当に滑稽ですね。犯人が私だとは知らずに。はあ?
Masquerade, fueled by a desire for war with Komari, faces an unexpected twist when Sukuna and a mysterious priest vote against her proposed action. However, the tide turns when it's revealed that Del, a potential swing vote, is dead. In a clandestine revelation, Vil discloses to Komari that she poisoned Del to ensure Masquerade's plan fails. Frustrated by the thwarted vote, Masquerade attempts to declare war on Komari. Surprisingly, Karen approves the idea, paving the way for a Crimson Lord's War, a free-for-all entertainment spectacle. Despite Komari's reluctance to be a Crimson Lord, she finds solace in her writing and even hands Sukuna a manuscript during their meeting. However, a revelation about her pen name prompts a hasty rendezvous with Sukuna. During their encounter, Komari crosses paths with the suspicious priest, who hints at a mysterious farewell. Sukuna, intrigued by Komari's soaked appearance, offers her hospitality, presenting a Komari shirt, a peculiar item Vil seems to possess in abundance. As Komari explores Sukuna's living quarters, she stumbles upon a room filled with Komari dolls, a dakimakura of herself, and an array of pictures. Unveiling Sukuna's immense crush on her, Komari learns more about Sukuna's background, including her family being held captive and her adoption by the priest. Further revelations surface as it's disclosed that Sukuna, like Komari, is a vampire known as the Sapphire, emitting no body heat. Despite Komari's willingness to collaborate, concerns arise within Sukuna's magical team compared to Komari's. As they discuss matters under the night sky, Sukuna poses a hypothetical scenario about terrorists threatening her family, testing Komari's resolve. Komari's unequivocal response raises doubts in Sukuna's mind, leading to a tense moment where Sukuna attempts to strangle Komari before Vil intervenes.
小森様。殺気を感じました。ほんのわずかですが。気のせいだろ。
Sukuna finds herself torn between her allegiance to the terrorists and her burgeoning friendship with Komari. The terrorists retaliate by killing Sukuna's hostage family, introducing the risk of permanent death. Sukuna, caught in a complex situation, struggles to reconcile her duty with her newfound bond with Komari as the intricate web of alliances and betrayals intensifies in this gripping anime saga. Sukuna found herself in a perplexing situation when the blue-haired vampire casually strolled into her room. The vampire, nonchalantly sipping tea, cast a critical eye on Sukuna's choice of attire, a rather unconventional t-shirt featuring Terakomari's face. Despite the vampire's evident disapproval of Terakomari worship, Sukuna cherished the fugly t-shirt as a personal favorite. The conversation took a more serious turn as the vampire disclosed her intention to depart from the ranks of Inverse Moon, and Sukuna, in turn, revealed the dire situation of her family being held hostage. Meanwhile, the atmosphere surrounding the impending Crimson Lord's War reached a fever pitch as revelers indulged in spirits and lively discussions. Projected onto a colossal screen, the rules of the upcoming conflict were unveiled. Contestants were to retrieve a crimson spear located at the heart of the ruins before the sun dipped below the horizon. Points were allocated for dispatching enemy soldiers and Crimson Lords, with the lowest scoring Crimson Lord compelled to resign. Each commander was entrusted with a mere 100 troops, and the victor stood to receive rewards from Her Majesty. Komari, though participating in the war, found herself with a modest force of 30 troops, having weathered the selection process that witnessed the demise of 470 candidates. A taunting call from Float, predicting Komari's imminent failure, added an extra layer of tension. In the midst of the unfolding drama, Sekuna's troops remained eerily motionless until a sudden surge of seriousness overcame her. With eyes ablaze, she issued a command to capture Float and deliver her to Sekuna. Her Majesty observed these developments alongside her general, Armand, recognizing Sekuna's actions as a core implosion, a manifestation of her memoir's guilt in the serial killing of high-level government officials. However, Her Majesty refrained from immediate intervention, suspecting external manipulation of Sekuna's actions by an inverse moon operative. Simultaneously, Komari found herself entangled in a perilous encounter with Delphine, with Vil, her steadfast assistant, attempting to shield her from the onslaught. The battle escalated, and Sekuna's latent powers were laid bare as she breached Float's defenses in a spectacular display of strength. Amid the chaos, a sudden explosion rocked the battlefield, shattering the Crimson Sphere. Empowered by the droplets of blood and the unexpected intervention of Sekuna, Komari faced Float. The revelation, however, that Sekuna herself was aligned with Inverse Moon left Komari in a state of shock, prompting her to succumb to unconsciousness under the influence of Sekuna's mental spell. Komari takes an unexpected leap into the vibrant tapestry of Sekuna's memories. Picture this, both of them are glowing like they just discovered the secret to eternal glow-up. It's a memory galaxy, a planetarium of sorts, where each star represents a monumental moment. Komari's all about it, admiring the beauty of this mental space, while Sekuna's playing it cool, denying the awesomeness. Now, Sekuna, being the cosmic tour guide, decides to show Komari the opening credits of her life, featuring her elder sister, the paragon of kindness, Komari Memoir. Sekuna's childhood was basically the script of a heartwarming family movie, peaceful, happy, and everyone getting along like they just won the family jackpot. The Sekuna clan even had this tradition of stargazing on holidays, sparking Sekuna's lifelong fascination with the twinkling celestial bodies. However, Sekuna drops the news about wicked god-slayers lurking in their world, and Terakomari is just as clueless as a cat trying to play chess. Sekuna spills the beans, revealing that the Dark Core is treated like a divine VIP, and there are folks out there gunning to take it down. Enter the Inverse Moon, the Dark Core's worst frenemy. These guys would go to extreme lengths to annihilate the Dark Core, including crashing peaceful family picnics. Sekuna opens the memory vault to the slaughter of her family by these Inverse Moon maniacs. No hesitation, just ruthless slicing and dicing. Sekuna's family missed the revival memo because they got ritualistically disassembled, rendering the Dark Core powerless. The motive behind this massacre? Simple, inflict despair on Sekuna and recruit her as a pawn. Classic bad guy move. Now, let's talk about Sekuna's offer she couldn't refuse. The Inverse Moon dude who orchestrated the family fiesta told Sekuna that if she put her heart and soul into being a top-tier terrorist, they'd spill the beans on how to revive her family. And that, my friends, is how Sekuna got roped into the dark side. Her mission, manipulate memories and spill the beans on the Dark Core. Here's the gut punch. Sekuna, with a heavy heart, reveals that she was the one who offed Terakomari's pops. But hey, she had her reasons. It was either manipulate memories or watch her family meet a grisly end. Talk about being caught between a rock and a hard place, or in this case, a memory and a hard place. Life can be a cosmic soap opera sometimes. In the heat of the cosmic clash, Sekuna finds herself burdened with the task of taking down Terakomari. However, Terakomari, cool as a cucumber, argues that offing her won't achieve anything because she's clueless about the Dark Core. Terakomari retreats to her own consciousness, the battlefield of her mind, leaving Sekuna torn between duty and an unwillingness to harm Terakomari. Sekuna's internal struggle unfolds, visible even in her battle stance. Her connection to Terakomari is stronger than her desire for conflict. But the specter of her family's fate looms large. Komari, ever the confused bystander, questions Sekuna's motive, pointing out that she's already lost her family. However, Sekuna tells her she's found a new family, and Komari is her new elder sister. The mission takes a bizarre turn as Sekuna reveals her quest to find someone with a beautiful constellation shape, like her father, to rearrange their memories. Haldia's heaven, not a spitting image of Sekuna's father, becomes the chosen one solely due to a stunning Aquila constellation. Sekuna approaches Komari, hand raised to commence the memory remix. Tears stream down her face as she implores Komari to stay still. Here's where the emotional roller coaster takes a steep plunge. Komari, grinning for a moment, agrees to become Sekuna's elder sister but protests against being killed. She points out that she's the only sister Sakuna has left, and rearranging someone else's memories seems disrespectful to her real big sister. Sakuna, overwhelmed, breaks into tears while Komari, with a gentle smile, hugs her, offering comfort reminiscent of a real sister. Amidst this poignant moment, Odilon makes a dramatic entrance, unaware that Miss Gandis' blood is unharmed. Furious and betrayed, he unleashes a brutal attack on Sakuna. Komari attempts to intervene, but Odilon, in a fit of rage, breaks her hand and tosses her aside. Realizing Komari is too fragile to bother with, Odilon prepares to deal with Sakuna. But Sakuna, battered and wounded, stands tall, shouting at Odilon to stay away from Terakomari, defiance burning in her eyes. The battle rages on, not just between warriors, but between loyalties and the bonds of newfound sisterhood. Sakuna decides to break ties with the inverse moon, much to Odilon's furious objection. He berates Sakuna for her rebellious stance, emphasizing her role as his tool for life. But Sakuna, fueled by a newfound resolve, unveils Cornelius's elixir, a gift from Odilon, and consumes it. The elixir triggers a surge of power within Sakuna, who, now fueled by rage, is ready to sacrifice herself to take down Odilon. With the might of Dusttail Comet, Sakuna launches a fierce assault on Odilon, using sharp ice projectiles. Odilon, attempting to defend himself, ends up wounded and falls to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, Sakuna moves in for the finishing blow. However, in a sudden turn of events, she begins to bleed internally, her strength waning. It's then that Sakuna recalls the advice of the Purple Witch, urging her to let Komari drink her blood when things get tough. As Komari approaches, emitting a blue aura, Sakuna, weakened and on the verge of defeat, allows Komari to drink her blood. The transformation is remarkable. Komari's appearance changes, and her magic takes on a new level of potency. Komari, now empowered, confronts Odilon, who is ready to strike her down with a ritual article. Komari uses her newfound abilities to protect Sakuna, but her mercy comes with a condition: Odilon must apologize. Odilon, steeped in arrogance, refuses to comply. In response, Komari delivers a powerful punch that sends him flying miles away. But the relentless Komari doesn't let him escape so easily. She appears beside him, freezes his arm, and proceeds to rip it apart, shattering it on the ground. Despite Odilon's attempt to retreat using magical stones, the plan of the inverse moon has failed. Back at the inverse moon base, Odilon faces betrayal from his own subordinates who, under Sakuna's mind control, stab him nearly to death. Though Odilon survives the night, his tools are wiped out. Komari, emerging as the victor of the Crimson Lord Wars, demands an apology from him, and when Odilon continues to resist, Komari unleashes a powerful blast to finish him off. 7 days later, Sakuna humbly enters Komari's room to apologize for the trouble she caused. However, Komari forbids her from doing so, and Her Majesty, recognizing Sakuna's efforts, pardons her. Sakuna is tasked with a new role as a Crimson Lord, and she extends apologies to everyone she had harmed, including Heldius Heavens. The Crimson Lord Wars come to an end, with Komari emerging as the victor and bringing a resolution to the turbulent for now. That concludes the anime of the Shut-In Princess. Make sure to push subscribe and let us know your thoughts and also your favorite vampire down below. I'm out.